Once upon a time, in the magical land of Equestria, there were two regal sisters who ruled together and created harmony for all the land. To do this, the eldest used her unicorn powers to raise the sun at dawn. The younger brought out the moon.
When the show ended, it was a couple years before I actually watched another episode. I guess that kind of thing happens in life. You finish one thing and you move on to the next. Kind of like laundry. Hi, my name is John, and I'm a brony. Alright, so it's been over 3 years since the show ended, and yeah, I felt like this was a good period to reflect on my time in the Brony fandom. So around the 10-year anniversary of when the show first aired, and the 1-year anniversary of when the show ended, there was a lot of videos of people reflecting on their time on the fandom, and I also wanted to do and share my thoughts on this. I was too late because this thought just kept getting bigger and bigger, and I didn't have the time to do it. But I'm doing it now. Better late than never, I guess. So yeah, life has, of course, changed since the show ended. Like, to really get into that, I really have to get into what life was like during the fandom. And to get into that, I have to get into what life was like before the fandom. And so, to just keep track of this video, I've divided this whole, I guess, retrospective into 3 sections. Life before ponies, life during ponies, and of course, life after ponies. So to give this project a bit more depth, I've asked a couple people to do some interviews with their own perspectives on these 3 points. I felt that it was best to get other people's perspectives because, well, I have my own perspective, and it's probably going to be very different from you guys. So I just thought, why not just get some other perspectives to join in? So why don't we get started to where it all began, life before ponies. So I grew up completely normal. I don't even know what that means. So I grew up in South America because my parents were missionaries. So because of that, I grew up in mostly Christian environments, which meant that I had a sense of what a close-knit community was like, which would really come in handy when learning about bronies in the future. Can you state your name and what you do?
Hi, my name is Drummer Shy. I am a Brony musician / drummer. I was formerly with a lot of stuff. I was a former PMV maker. And I was a former a founder / co-founder of Baloney's React, and I was in. I played with a lot of people in the Brony convention scene, but also have a kind of presence around the community and social media as well.
So I love soccer, being anywhere outside of the United States. Of course, I love soccer, but I also love baseball because I'm an American. I was obsessed with those 2 sports. I don't really follow them anymore. I'll watch the World Cup, but sports ain't my thing no more.
So my name is Mo, and I'm a student. I'm a digital media student, so I make videos.
And you're not a brony.
No, I'm not. But my brother was.
A lot of my experience on YouTube, watching YouTube videos, was just watching like Lego stop motions, the occasional video game walkthrough. Yeah, I was pretty exciting as a kid, I'm sure.
Well, my name is Jack Getchman. I am the creator of Scooter Trick Studios, which is a YouTube channel, very pony-centric. And basically, I mainly made... my biggest claim to fame was an abridged series called Scooter Tricks The Abridged, But I guess I'm branching out to do other videos too. I'm starting to do some rap battles now. Maybe an analysis video, we'll see. And then some other things like music related stuff. But mainly parody and a bridge series.
My favorite TV shows that I would watch were like Doctor Who, Star Wars, The Clone Wars, the Arrowverse, which was like Arrow, Flash, pretty much that. And then I also really liked Duck Dynasty. It was a nice show that me and my father would bond over, which was really nice, you know. You should always have that. So can you tell us what life was like before you started watching this show?
I was still trying to find my place in this world, and I was so heavily influenced on video games and stuff. Life before it was kind of complicated because my childhood, even though I had it great, but I still had complications in my life, and I just did not know where I wanted to be. I was always the kid who was always a Debbie Downer and whatever, and I just did not know where to find my place in this world. But I was starting to become a drummer at that time. Before I got into MLP, I was starting to get my way around through percussion and all that sort of stuff. You know, I always wanted to make a friend, but I barely had any friends at that point. I barely knew anybody, so I was pretty alone at that point.
And around the time, close to when I got into ponies, I'd gone into Minecraft. I also got into writing stories. Then I got into theater, which I will explain later on.
We were into a lot of like classic films. So like all the really popular ones. Like we used to watch American Sniper. We used to watch like Rambo. Rambo is a big one. Rambo and Rocky. We used to love those. He used to watch a lot of like horror films, like different types of filmmaking.
And at some point between the years of 2010 to like 2012, I learned what a brony was. I don't remember what the first time I heard it was, but I learned what it was, and I thought it was weird. Like, what? A grown man watching My Little Pony? This guy's not gonna help society in any way. He must be a freak. And I thought that until I moved to a new school in 2012 and I met one. He was unapologetically a brony. Any chance that he got, he would always try to convince all his friends to watch the show. I would always say no, but each time he kept asking, I would change my answer slowly, saying, no, but maybe if I have kids one day, I'll watch it with them, or no, some other reason or excuse to give to why I'm not going to watch it now, but maybe one day. So I was slowly saying, I won't not watch it one day, but not right now. Stop bugging me.
My life has always been pretty good. It was just sort of normal. The only big difference I can think of was my goals and career choice for myself. So I used to want to be a movie director, like a live action blockbuster movie director. I always knew I wanted to be in filmmaking, but that was kind of the thing. And it was like live action, you know, serious, that kind of thing. I know when I did start getting into Pony, that's like all I did though was watch Pony videos. And I remember remarking to myself, like, what did I used to watch, or what did I used to do before Pony? So it's sort of a mystery, I guess, but from what I remember, it was sort of a normal childhood, I guess.
I remember when Ecclesiastes Girls was coming out, he was so excited for the film. I was excited for him. I was happy for that. So he told me about it, and for some reason I went home and I watched the trailer. It wasn't good. It's Ecclesiastes Girls. It's not good. That was my first exposure to ponies. Not the best exposure.
Pegasus, Earth Pony, or...
Oh, I would love to be a Pegasus. Actually, no. I've always wanted to be a unicorn. That would be amazing. I mean, seriously, they have like levitation powers.
Oh
that's always one of my superpowers if I have the choice.
No, Cole, it's just hearing it from you. I just want to be a unicorn.
And so one summer, I got into some YouTube web series, and one of them was Death Battle, which just takes these random characters and decides who would win in a fight, like Goku and Superman, Godzilla and Gamera. They were pretty cool. I disagreed with some of them, but they were pretty cool. And they had one with Transformers Starscream and My Little Pony's Rainbow Dash, and I watched it. I thought it was pretty cool. It didn't quite convince me to watch the show, but I thought it was cool to have this Rainbow Pony character who can explode rainbows and defeat a robot, I guess. He thought it was cool too after I showed it to him. But like, none of those are how I got into the show. This is how I got into the show. Unlike many other coming to pony stories that I've heard, I had no feelings of depression or loneliness. That came with college. So, how did you get into the show?
I got in through the show from a game called Team Fortress 2, which I played a lot. This guy was offering keys. When I got into the show was when I basically said, sure, I'll take the 2 keys, I'll watch 2 episodes. My younger, dumb self thought I wanted to get a lot of keys when I watched all the episodes, but boy, was I wrong. It set me on a path where I did not know what I was going to get into, where I was watching season 1 all the way from Fall Weather Friends, all the way up to the recent episode before Grand Galba Gala came out. I was fascinated by what was going on, and it was very, very interesting, and I was interested to see what's going on.
It was a Saturday afternoon, no one else was in the house, and I was going through Netflix looking for something to kind of rip on, like a bad movie or something, and I saw the My Little Pony title, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is probably pretty bad. And so I start watching it, and I was riffing on it at first, but then after a while I was kind of just watching it, and I was like, oh, I kind of like the voice acting, and I kind of like the characters, and some of the jokes are kind of making me laugh a little bit. And by the end of the first episode, I was kind of like, well, maybe I should watch the second episode, because this is kind of interesting. For me, I was like, man, I kind of really like this, but I don't want to get obsessed with something like this. This feels really weird. And at this time, I really didn't go on the internet that much, so I had no idea the Brony fandom existed at all, or that other people liked the show too. So I thought I was the only one, and so I was like, okay, you gotta stop right now. So I stopped watching, and I didn't touch it again really until maybe a year and a half later or something. This was all in like 2012 or 2013, by the way, when I did this. Then a friend of mine who was really into the show, I guess, reintroduced it to me. And again, it's like I liked it, but at this point I was like, I'd never binge watch it. I would never, it's a My Little Pony. But he then showed me the Brony documentary, the John Delancey Brony documentary. And this was really the first time that I got a glimpse of who the Bronies were. And to me, it was really interesting because, like, deep down, I did really like the show. I wanted to see more of what it was. And then to see, like, all these other people who also liked it. And then I really loved how creative they all were. That was a huge draw for me, was just how creative they were and how much, like, the sheer amount of stuff that they made.
But on the 4th of November, 2014, I was watching through Llamas with Hats when I stumbled upon an episode of Rainbow Dash Presents. So what caught my eye was that I could tell that it was ponies. I could see that was from My Little Pony. But I saw that the art style was different. So I checked it out to see if it was a parody of the show, and I fell in love with it. So then I binged the rest of Rainbow Dash Presents, and then I went ahead and started watching reaction videos to Rainbow Dash Presents, and that's where I discovered about the Mentally Advanced series, Friendships of Witchcraft, a bunch of other fan works, and then I watched those, then I watched the reaction videos to those, and I watched as many as I could. I watched as many fan content as I could. I watched as many reaction videos as I could. And these reaction videos helped me build an understanding about the fandom and the characters of the show and what it means to be a brony. That was really my exposure to bronies outside of my friend, was through these reaction videos. And so, of course, I binged and rewatched Rainbow Dash Presents the Mentally Advanced series a couple times for like 2 weeks. And then I started watching the show officially. And on the 1st of April 2015, when I had caught up with the show, I proclaimed myself to be a brony. And then I started watching the show. So now that I was watching the show, as it aired, my life during ponies begins. And so season 5 was the first season that I started watching weekly. And you know what? It was my favorite season of the show. One, partially because it was the first season I started watching weekly, but also it had everything that I could have wanted from this show. And this is partially because it checked off a lot of things from the list. Now hold it, John, hold it. What the heck is this list that you're referring to? Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, the list is a list of things that I would like to see in the show. So, now that I have, of course, watched 4 seasons of the show, I have a good understanding about the characters, their arcs, their plots, their wants and desires. And so I had a little list of things that would be cool to see the show do. Let's take a look at that list. The list. Let's start from the beginning, shall we? It'd be cool to have another seasonal arc that will let us explore new lands of Equestria. It'd be cool to have just a normal pony as a villain. It'd also be interesting to have some concept that's previously unexplored in the show. Communism. It'd be cool to have an episode where Twilight mourns the loss of her treehouse, and not just take her castle at face value. I think it'd be pretty cool to see the Apple Bloom Dream episode with Luna. I think it'd be pretty cool to see another episode with Tank in it, and maybe have another song with Rainbow Dash. Maybe we get to see the Weather Factory. Maybe there's an allegory for death in it. It'd be cool to visit Appaloosa again, and if we had an actual horse, and we had a character with a mistaken identity crisis with his cutie mark. It'd be cool to see Discord again. Maybe have an episode kind of centered around him. Maybe explore more of his friendship with Fluttershy. It'd be cool to see Gilda again. It'd also be cool to see more Griffins, or see where the Griffins live. It'd be cool if all the background ponies would actually speak, or just have an episode with just the background ponies, and all the fan canons and understandings of these ponies' relationships are indeed canon. Anything that's fandom related is canon. It'd be cool to have another episode where I actually like Spike. This one's a bit controversial, but I like this episode. It'd be cool to have an episode where we have another species introduced to the show. Maybe it'd also be cool to see Cherry Jubilee again. It'd be cool to see an episode where we get to explore more of Twilight's time in Canterlot before she moved to Ponyville. Who were her friends? Who the heck is Moondancer? This is my favorite episode, by the way. I really like this one. It'd be cool to have a Luna episode, maybe with dreams. Maybe the main 6 have dreams. It'd be cool to see Flutterbat again, or just have some wild craziness in it. I would like a good Rarity episode where I actually like the character. It'd be cool to see her accomplish her dreams, and just do stuff where I actually don't hate her. Wow, we got 3 of those in a row. It'd be cool if they did another 2-parter episode, like the one with Spike and the pets. It'd also be cool to have Big Mac speak more. Oh, that's one of the best moments of the show, for sure. It'd be cool to have another musical episode, and maybe we get to have more redemption for Diamond Tiara. And if our Cutie Mark Crusaders got their cutie marks, that would never happen. Oh wait, it did. It'd be cool if a writer from the books and or the comic books actually wrote an episode. We get to see more of Shining Armor and Cadence relationship. Maybe add something new to them. It'd be cool to have another hearts-warming episode. Maybe with Pinkie Pie's family. Also, it'd be cool to see the Pinkie Pie connection to the Apple family. It'd be cool to see another Nightmare Night episode. Something that's fun with Fluttershy in it. It'd be cool to have an episode with a special guest who sings a really cool song. It'd be really cool if the villain for the finale was the same villain from the opening. It'd also be really cool if we got to see more usage of time travel. It'd be really cool if we got to see multiple villains come back. It'd be really cool if we had some sort of Fallout Equestria reference. This last one's also a bit of a stretch, but like, I'm gonna count it. Cause, you know, Wasteland, what a wild finale. So you get the idea. I may not have loved every single one of these episodes, but almost every single one of these episodes did something that I really wanted to see in the show. And because of that, I really love this season. Like, no other season has topped this. Yeah, Season 5 will forever stand in my heart as the best one, because it has everything that I want in a season. And so now that I was watching Ponies weekly, I had a full week of things that I would just watch. On Sundays, I would watch Doctor Who. On Mondays, I would watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. On Tuesdays, there was The Flash. On Wednesdays, there was Legends of Tomorrow. Thursdays was for Arrow. Fridays were for whatever's left to watch. Most of the time, it was just YouTube videos. And Saturdays were dedicated to ponies. Actually, when I was first getting into the show, Fridays were when I watched the show. That was when my parents would go out and have a game night with other parents, and so I would sneakily watch the show while they were gone until, you know, I finally was like open about watching the show. Man, like, the show made me an even bigger nerd than I was. Like, I could at one point be able to identify episode numbers, the episode names, what season those episodes were in, who the heck wrote those episodes. I would go on Equestria daily just to check on the news. I actually still check Equestria daily to check on the news. There's not much news, but I still check it just in case. And after I'd watched the episode that came out that week, I would immediately go to YouTube and look for reaction videos. Which then leads me to my next point. Remember earlier where I talked about how, as a Christian, I was mainly raised in close-knit communities? Well, this is where it applies. The Brony fandom in itself is a community. Within that community, there are more close-knit communities inside them. Think of it as cliques from high school. You know, you have the tables, like we got the musicians, we got the analysis bronies, the fanfic writers, the Fallout Equestria fanfic writers, the artists, the casuals. Me, I fell into the Brony Reactor community. So what is a Brony Reactor? Well, reactors in general are people who watch and review episodes of television or films. Specifically in the Brony community, this means reacting to the show, and specifically reacting to Brony content, like Brony fan animations, fan series, Pony Abridged series. Anything Brony related, Bronies will react to it. In fact, Brony reactors are one of the earliest pioneers of reaction videos on YouTube. You go on YouTube now, there's hundreds of reaction channels, but like back in the heyday of the show around 2014, 2015, back during the start of when reaction channels were starting to pop up, that was when Brony reactors were like thriving. 2013, you had reactors like Alex Side React, Ratchetness, Latix, Pie Disliker Swag, Ranger Bravo, Do You Want to Build a Brony? Johnny Fireflame, Cobalt Sky, Soundspeed, Jack T. Herbert, and so many more that I can't seem to remember. There are so many Brony reactors out there in their heyday, and they were all pioneers to what eventually became the Brony reaction community, where we had people like Potter Brony, Rarity Dash, Blank Check, those being the very popular names that we got. Brony Burning Axe, Demon Angel, Luffy is Cool. I was a very small part of that community in that I was watching all of their stuff I did reaction videos. I'll get to that later on. I hope one day when somebody goes back and analyzes the reaction community in general, that they'll stumble upon the Brony Reactor community. There is a difference between the two. I'll talk more about that much later, but there's a difference. So it's the middle of the night, and right now I'm working on editing through my old reaction videos to the show and cutting down the bits that I don't really do much in. I'm doing it for a few reasons. Main one is fair use and copyright, specifically when reacting to official shows. In this new cut down version, it's much more digestible for a new audience member to just watch and see highlights versus sitting through the entire thing and maybe getting no commentary. It's been a long time coming. It's a lot of episodes, but I think it'll be worth it. Me, myself, I was watching all the reactions from the very beginning, but I started becoming more part of that community is when I started reacting to the show in Season 6. I then reacted to fan content that I wasn't aware of or just stuff that was coming out at the time. Inkpots was some of my favorite to watch. Those were very fun animatic shorts that really got me to start appreciate musicals in general. Also, they did really well on my channel. Another thing that did really well was the Daughter Discord. Yeah, good stuff. I wouldn't say that my involvement with the community was great. I wouldn't really talk a whole lot with them. There were a few moments where I did, but yeah, there was never really any formal collaboration done or anything like that. But I have met a lot of those other reactors. How? Where? Here's how. Yeah, that's right, BronyCon. Yeah, any Brony knows what BronyCon is. But if you're not a Brony, if you're just curious, then yeah, BronyCon is a convention for Bronies. It's that simple. I personally started going in 2015, only a few months after becoming a Brony. Like, I became a Brony April 1st. The month after that, I got my tickets for BronyCon, and then I went. That's just cool. That's just awesome. I get into something, a few months later, I go to a convention. I've never been to a convention before, but I went. Not long after I became a Brony, I was intrigued by the idea of BronyCon. I saw that other people were posting their vlogs about BronyCon 2014, the previous years. I believe the one that I saw was Alex Side, and I was curious, like, oh, what's BronyCon? I've never heard of this. I don't really know what conventions are. And so I started looking it up, and I saw that they were in Baltimore, which was a place that I was very familiar with. Over the past few years, me and my father would go to the Baltimore Orioles baseball stadium and watch a game once every couple of years. And so I was familiar with that area. And so when I found out that the BronyCon was being held at the convention center that was right across the street from the baseball stadium, it was like, whoa, I've been there without even knowing I've been there. 2015, at the time, was the highest attendance before the final one. And it's also my personal favorite. It was the most exciting time to be there. Partially because it was my first time. I also do feel like, I'll touch more on this later, but it was really like the peak of being a Brony. Some say that's 2012, 2013, but like 2015, the energy was still there. And so at BronyCons, you know, I had a lot of fun there. I went to the panels, got to meet a bunch of people. I've done a whole vlog series about my time there. But yeah, no, I loved going to BronyCon. I had gone from BronyCon from 2015 to 2019. Went for 5 years straight, which was interesting. But cool. There, at my very first BronyCon, I met the Brony Reactor Potter Brony. And there was an interesting story behind that, in that I was waiting in line to get an autograph from John Delancey, the voice of Discord, and Potter Brony was right there as well. I saw him in line, I looked at him, was like, hi, he kind of looks familiar. And so I asked him, I was like, hey, you look familiar. Do I know you from somewhere? And he's like, oh, I run a YouTube channel. And I'm like, oh, really? What is it? He's like, it's Potter Brony. I'm like, oh, cool. I like your stuff. So then I got a picture with him. It's really cool because that's one of the earliest instances where I interacted with like someone in my own community. But it's also very interesting too because he later posted a con vlog where he talked about that experience specifically, where that was the first time he was recognized by a fan for his work and how he was really touched by that. Unfortunately, that video no longer exists because his original channel got taken down, but like that was that was just the hypest thing that I saw, seeing it's like I had an effect on someone. And of course I showed it to all my friends being like, I was mentioned in someone else, like they inspired me. It's really cool. Yeah. So in 2016, I brought a couple friends along. It was another friend who was a Brony and his brother, and we had a good time there. There were some like crazy stories. There's one story that I'll never forget involving Tara Strong, where I went. It was getting autographs, of course, and then my friend walks into the autograph section, casually walking side by side with Tara Strong. He doesn't even realize it's her, and I go up to him. It's like, dude, do you know who the heck that was? And he's like, no. And I'm like, dude, that was Tara Strong. And he's like, oh, I should have said hi. Oh, we're never gonna let him down for that, you know. It's an embarrassing story. Funny, but embarrassing.
Like, I'm also surprised that security didn't like, dude, please step away from this person.
Yeah, they're like private property for some reason.
You know, I wish that we had the Fallout Equestria technology or the memory orb so that we can like rewatch that whole experience over and over again.
Don't worry, it was on my head the whole day after that, because I said I should have at least say hi.
And so BronyCon was really the main place where I got my pony swag. You know, pretty much anything that you see behind me, I got at BronyCon. Yeah, it was like that time of year. It's like, okay, if I want to buy some shirts, some pony shirts, get them at BronyCon. If I want to get some hats, get it at BronyCon. Get a poster, maybe get some plushies for like a cheaper price, get them at BronyCon. BronyCon was the place to go to get my pony swag, and that's where I got it. Speaking of swag, is that when I was first getting into the fandom, I didn't want to get any pony swag because I was like, I'm just in it for the show. I don't need any cool swag to say that I'm part of the fandom. But then, you know, of course, I started seeing these really well-made, I guess, figures and plushies and posters and such. I was like, you know what? That's actually really well done. I guess I'll get that. And I did.
Here was my first ever plushie. You know, I got it online. It was a really good deal and looked exactly like the character. And since then, I've ended up getting all the main 6, plus Trixie and Con exclusive Flufflepuff. Here are some little chibi figures from We Love Fine. I got 4 characters. That was all I can go forward. And here I got some BronyCon badges with my character's art on it. They're from the artist called Skiggles. And we got some Bonnie Zachary signed this classic pony figure. Really cool. And then some random stuff. Very fun stuff. And here are the Fallout Equestria books that I got. Got the Pink Eyes and then the 4th edition of this printing. So during the conventions, I've gotten some posters over the years. This is one of my favorites. It's from Andy Price. Love this artwork about rumors. And then of course I've got the con posters. I have them from like 2015 to 2019, but I only have the first 3 years framed up because I don't have any more room. Yeah. So here I have some of the some shirts that I've had over the years. Most of them I've gotten at conventions. A couple of them I bought online. Yeah. So for a couple of my birthdays in the past years, my mom she's an art teacher, and so she painted these oil paintings of these pony figures, which are really nice. They're not based on specific characters. Obviously, that's a Celestia, but to make her own, she just removed the horn. And here we just got this random silhouette. Really love them. really nice. So this is a 1,000-piece puzzle that I got at the last BronyCon. I got another one as well that I can't seem to find right now. But yeah, no, I never did this puzzle because puzzles are hard, but it's a really beautiful piece of art. Another really fun part about going to a convention is, of course, meeting the writers and creators of the show, and even the cast, you know. I was able to meet all the main six, all the Kingdom Hearts Crusaders, a few other voice actors, Lauren Faust at the final BronyCon. Such an honor just to meet these people who had influences on my life. I'll get to that later. It's also great to see other community members, like the people of Brony's React. They're not part of the Brony Reactor community, they're their own subsection, but Brony's React, like AC Respest, Saberspark, Gabriel Brown, other people. It was really cool to see all these people that I watched that influenced me to come into the fandom and like meet them. It was really fun. I got to meet a bunch of like the Brony reactors in general, like Alex Side before he retired, and a bunch of others I saw in the final BronyCon, which was really cool. Some people that I wasn't too sure about, I met them in person and was like, these are really cool people, and so I started appreciating them more. And then I got to meet some people like Trish Forshner, who wrote a comic book. She's involved in like this comic book called Stray Dogs. Trish Forshner, along with Tony Fleece. It's getting an adaptation of a film soon. But yeah, she also did like some artwork for some fandom projects like Children of the Night. A really good artist. I think you should check her out. And of course, you know, as you go and recognize people, it's always the dream and hope to be recognized by others.
Lego JPL?
Yes.
Hey! Welcome.
It's great to see you.
It's great to see you. Okay, Jake. Yeah, so... yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, Lego JPL Studios in the flesh.
It happened in 2017. For... Not because people were fans of my work. Maybe they were. But for another reason. It was that year that I reacted to a series of videos called Baloney's React, a parody to Brony's React. And the team from that series saw my reaction videos, and let's just say that we had a bit of a camaraderie going on before the convention. And so it was really cool when in 2017 I got to meet a bunch of those people, and they of course recognized me instantly. One of the highlight moments of my time at BronyCon is getting recognized by Redcard, who was a con vlogger, and just it's really cool to have that happen. And yeah, highlight moment. So let's talk about my life. So I'm pretty sure you can tell that it's probably safe to assume that I was obsessed with pony content. There's definitely nothing around me that would suggest that. Nothing at all. And so what life was like for me in general during the time of ponies is that after each week, after each episode, I would go and just talk about the episode with my friend. We would chat about it, talk about what we liked, what we hoped to see in the next week. It was a great time. It was great to be friends and just to appreciate the show. Would you say that you were changed because of the fandom or from watching the show in ways of your life?
I would say both, because of the fact that not only the show helps me learn the lessons from the show from season 1 all the way up to season 3 and so on and so forth. I would say the show has helped me grab some life lessons and social skills that I never thought I was able to learn from them, because it gave me kind of a sensing happiness to know that I have something that I can enjoy and talk with people about.
What was your overall involvement like? What did life look like?
Life looked like me going in onto my computer and making a PMV. So that was pretty much all my time was making PMVs, but also interacting with people on Skype and joining in on discussions and stuff and talking about ponies and having fun. The Skype days were definitely the golden days of talking with people before Discords and before servers. And then by then, the days where I started to express my drumming and my talent, because I kept that inside of me throughout the entire time, but I never even showed people. But I never imagined my drumming songs would make it out to the public, even catching the attention of some of the show staff, which was something that I thought never happened.
Whenever I did homework or whenever I worked on group projects or just any projects in general, I would always try and find a way to sneak Pony in some way. Sometimes it'd be like very obvious that I'm about ponies. Another way, I'm just very subtle. I just have a little picture in the corner.
He dove into it. Like, that was all of his free time, just right down the drain, because that's all he wanted to do was My Little Pony. In fact, he used to edit for My Little Pony YouTuber, so that would take up the majority of his free time. But basically, he lived in My Little Pony. It became a bit of an obsession for him, which is totally fine. It's a cool show. I can get it. But this was at the height of Dogecoin, when Dogecoin was still popular, and he had a digital wallet. And he heard that there was a My Little Pony toy in the McDonald's Happy Meals, so he went to go buy one and forgot his wallet at home. So what he ended up doing is he bought him a Happy Meal for My Little Pony toy using Dogecoin.
I was a proud Brony, but I was also subtle about being proud. I wasn't in your face saying, I like My Little Pony. I would wear a pony shirt that was just maybe an outline of a pony or just cutie marks, but nothing crazy. I also started reading some fan fiction. There was the popular ones, of course, like My Little Dashie, Cupcakes, Rainbow Factory, and of course Fallout Equestria, which I really enjoyed.
I love the show. I just fell in love with it. There's something about it that you can just you have to watch it for yourself.
Mine's the fan fiction.
He's into the fan fiction and cupcakes.
That's part of the fan fiction.
Uh-huh.
And of course the show and the fan works would just inspire and influence my creativity. When I eventually started writing stories, I would have some small reference, maybe not explicitly mention ponies, but a thing connected to ponies I might add into my work. What's also pretty cool is that the fandom and the fan content introduced me to just other properties like Dan Versus, Portal, Fallout. They're mostly video game related, but some of them are other TV shows like Gravity Falls. Just other stuff that I didn't know, but other people did, and so I learned from other people what that stuff was. It was pretty educational to learn about pop culture history, because we were pop culture history at the time.
I was very obsessed. I went, after I was okay, I'm a Brony, I went for it hard. Basically, every day after school, I would watch one episode, because I wanted to sort of savor it, and this was season 4 was coming out at the time, I believe. So I had a lot to catch up on, but I was doing one episode a day, so that lasted me however long that is. But then every day when I come home from school, I would watch a lot of the top 10 videos, and because to me it was just a variety of different stuff, and I could see what people knew. I was sort of picking up on all the inside jokes and the memes and that kind of thing. It was just a lot of pony watching. And then I guess a little later it went into actually making something, but yeah.
So how was your interactions with the fandom?
So pretty early on, I really only knew one person in real life who was into it, and that was my friend who got me into it. His name's Eric, the co-founder of Scooter Trick Studios. Eric and I did go see Living Tombstone though very early on. Because we lived in Japan at the time because we're military brats. And so he was there to meet Japanese bronies, and there was a brony meetup, and we're like, let's ride the train and go into the brony meetup, And so we went to a karaoke room with Living Tombstone and hung out with him for a bit. So that was kind of the biggest thing to that point that I was into. I guess one other fan interaction that was kind of funny was we went to a Far East Film Fest, and we were sitting on a bus, and this one guy was playing a flute, you know, because people do random things, and he started playing Winter Wrap Up, and Eric and I were like, wait, what is Winter Wrap Up? Whoa! I think though for the majority for like maybe the first 4 years or so of me being in the fandom, it was sort of me just sort of producing videos, and then I'd receive comments and stuff. I didn't really get into communities as much. And then it was only when we had a Discord server, that's when I really started to like talk to people more, and we started to, I guess, host panels at conventions and then interact with people more like that.
In my personality, in my mood, I noticed that I became much more friendly. I guess I am an introvert, and so I'm shy, like Fluttershy, but like I was more open to people. I started to act more like a nice, friendly person, and this is partially due to just becoming more confident in that I started joining theater. I began to appreciate more styles of music, like I enjoyed the music from the show. I listened to some Brony music, which helped me appreciate more of different genres. I still don't really love them, but I could appreciate them more. And it was really the whole idea of love and tolerance from the fandom that just I really gravitated towards and just try to give out to other people. Because getting into the fandom, the thing that I liked the most, that I really attracted to, was that it did really feel like, on a baseline, the Brony fandom and just how nice they were, the love and tolerance, and just how charitable they were, how friendly, how close-knit of a community they were, to me, an ideal version of what a Christian community would be like. In hindsight, there are two different things. You know, one is you like pop culture, the other one is religion. Another really influential part of the fandom was the Brony documentary. The infamous Brony documentary. I really enjoyed it. I connected to it the most. The people represented in that documentary were the ones that were within my range, within my family's range. I connected to those stories, and it really made me proud to be a Brony. Whatever your thoughts about the development of it, whether it's just made for a cash grab, or a defense against the Brony fandom, or whatever the heck it is, I really appreciated the fact that we had a documentary that put us in a mostly positive light, and I learned a lot about the fandom. And of course, it's outdated now, because the fandom has changed since the early days, but like, that was still how the fandom was, and it was just really cool to see. And you know, that's kind of one of the ways that I would explain Bronies to like friends, was to show them the documentary. I did really want to introduce the show to friends. I introduced it to my sister. She doesn't really watch it, but she watched a couple seasons with me. I had introduced it to a friend because we did a deal where I watched one thing, they watched what I chose, which is ponies. Nothing really came out of it. I do still really want to introduce the show to someone. It'd be really interesting to see just how, now that the show is over and now the fandom is, we'll get to that, how they get into it. Well, you know, it's great. We have a community, we have a BronyCon, life is going great. But nothing lasts forever. So everyone has a different opinion about when the decline of the fandom really began. Some would say it started in season 3, others would say in Equestria Girls. For me, it was around the time of season 6. The way I determined this was the direction of the show, convention attendance, any drama that was happening, lack of content being done, copyright, the YouTube apocalypse, many classic Bronies leaving the fandom. Whatever it was, it kind of, for me, started around the time of season 6. I will say, there is a potential bias in this. So after season 5 ended, the friend who introduced me to the show, the main guy who was trying to get me into ponies, passed away. And so from the time of season 6 and onwards, I was still dealing with this grief and passing. And I would definitely say that kind of affected the way I watched the show, the way I did content. It affected a lot of things. And so that's why I say there's potentially a bias about their decline. But looking back, yeah, I still kind of agree that this is when the decline happened. Season 6 was really the first time I stopped really enjoying the direction of the show. A lot of the writers that were part of the show from early on left in Season 5, and Season 6 introduced a bunch of new writers who were not as familiar with the characters, and were not, of course, required to watch every single episode to know the characters. And of course, this was also around the time where many of the earlier Bronies started leaving. Specifically, near the end of 2015, early 2016, many of the earliest Brony reactors retired and left. That's when Alex had left. There's a couple more that started to leave, and then they came back eventually, but that was really where the old school people were doing less with the fandom. And of course, you know, talking about BronyCon, since 2015, the attendance had been declining very obviously towards the end. And so when the announcement came for the final BronyCon, I was not surprised. I will say that before the 2018 convention started, I did get some inside information that the 2019 was going to be special in some way. And so at the entire that year of convention, I started just thinking, like, why is it special? Why would they do this thing? It's probably going to be the last one. And so when they finally announced it, that 2019 would be the last one, I was definitely not surprised.
We're going to make history. BronyCon 2019 will take place August 1st through the 4th, right here at the beautiful Baltimore Convention Center. This fandom has ever seen. But there's a reason we're throwing the party of a lifetime next year.
Oh, no.
As the curtains close on this chapter of BronyCon, we're also choosing to end the event next year. And it grew into something bigger than any of us could ever have imagined. And although we could return to our smaller roots, we feel if we did that, we would no longer be BronyCon. So instead, we want to send BronyCon out with the giant celebration it deserves.
I was thinking that it was probably going to be happening soon. The numbers were going down, and yeah, it happened. What were your thoughts and feelings to when the show ended and the days preceding that?
My thoughts and feelings regarding the show ending was I was a little sad, but knowing the fandom, I had hope for, you know, this would not only be, it was an ending, but I knew it was going to be a continuation of what people were going to be doing after the show was ending, because there was a lot of stuff people were doing. Like, my first initial thought was, you know, when Star Trek ended its last season, people just continued making stuff. So it's like the Brony fandom. The Brony fandom will continue after it ended. I was a little sad it was ending, because something that I've watched for the past 8 or 9 years was just coming to an end, and knowing that a part of my preteen childhood was ending, and I was becoming an independent adult at that time. So, but I didn't forget the friendship lessons, because I'm going to take those friendship lessons that I learned and observe them in life form.
The final BronyCon was actually a lot of fun, though. That ended up being the highest attended Brony convention, which was pretty cool. We got to see a lot of people come back for a last hurrah, and it did really feel like a last hurrah. That was really 2019 in general, the last season of the show. A last hurrah. That's what it felt like. But with that last hurrah was just a sense of dread, because we knew that the end was nigh.
By the time the show did end, we all knew that the show was ending. And for me personally, I thought the show's heyday was kind of over and had been over for a while. That's just my personal opinion. So when it ended, I was kind of wanting it to end. So it's like, okay, so we can do the new thing. What's the new thing going to be like? You know, so when it ended, I was like, wow, there it is. It's over, you know. But I think the big thing for me was 2018's BronyCon, when they announced that it was the last BronyCon. I think that for me was sort of that felt like the end of an era for me, or the end of the fandom, I guess. Well, it's not the end of the fandom, but it felt like it. So I think that was kind of more of the emotional impact for the show ending than the show itself actually ending. But I kind of just felt like, there it is, it's done.
Many other shows were ending around that time. Adventure Time is the closest example. We also had Steven Universe's coming to the end, regular show, other shows that I can't remember. But shows that were part of the 2010s were ending. Ponies was on that chopping block too, and we felt it. This was also around the time where Hasbro was like really strict on copyright, and so they were copyrighting things left and right. The YouTube adpocalypse became a thing, and animators started doing less animations because it wasn't viable for YouTube, so we lost Dawn Somewhere, Silly Philly Studios, just great creators that just stopped because animation was just not viable anymore. But really, my overall enjoyment of the show towards the end was just not great. I liked the show less and less each season as it came by. Really, a thing that kept me watching the show weekly was because I was reacting to the episodes. And so sometimes I'll be like, I don't really feel like watching this show. But then I'm like, well, I gotta do it because I'm a reactor. So I sucked it up, and sometimes the episodes were okay. The okay episodes were the highlight of the season, which is really a shame. You really want the good ones to be the highlight. A lot of stuff was just not great at that time. Just stuff going on in films. This was around the time where all the shows that I was watching previously, like Doctor Who, Arrow, The Flash, all the Star Wars stuff, they weren't good anymore. Yeah, they all went downhill around the same time, and it was like kind of sad because there was little for me to enjoy. That mixed with the fact that at this point I'm a college student with complex friendships and stuff going on, and then the show ended. Everybody was sad, everybody was reflective, talk about how much the fandom was, and by the time I got to the finale, I was kind of out of it, you know. I was busy with all this stuff, and I was disappointed with a lot of things. And then the end happened, and I didn't know how to feel about it. So the show had ended, but I had very little time to actually process my emotions. You see, at this time, I'm still a college student, and exams are coming up. Also, I had gotten involved in a little show called Bedford Boys. Now, Bedford Boys was an original play written by my university, and it was the most important thing I've ever worked on. For context, it's a play about a whole town of boys going off to fight in World War II, and most of them dying in the first battle. Their story ended up being the inspiration for Saving Private Ryan, and so being a part of a show like this was definitely very important. It's one of the last big shows that we've done that has sold out for the majority of its run. In terms on the fandom side of things, there was a noticeable intake on just fan celebrations of the show ending. Many animators made like short 30-second clips about celebrating the show or joking that, okay, the show's over, the fandom's over, let's go off and do our own thing now. There was a lot of that. There was a lot of celebration going on. You know, very notable one was Viva Reverie's Brony Polka, one he'd been animating for years now, which was pretty much a celebration of the fandom. Well, all of this celebration was kind of short-lived because immediately following all of that, Copa came into town. YouTube got in trouble for targeting kids. Copa started announcing regulations about having content being made for kids on YouTube, and of course, any Brony YouTuber freaked out because we had no idea what this meant for us. You see, My Little Pony isn't in fact a kid's show, but Brony content is certainly not kid-friendly. So there was a lot of worry if Brony content will be made for kids? And if that's the case, what the heck is that going to happen to the kids who are watching this Brony content? I'll get to that later.
Did you notice any observable difference when the show finally ended? How did it affect you?
I couldn't notice anything. At the time, he was away at college, and I was still pretty young. So it was hard to really notice anything. But all of a sudden, he seemed to have more free time than normal. And was a little disappointed that some of his favorite YouTube channels weren't posting as much.
Stepping back into my life here, almost pretty soon after the show ended, while we were given The Mandalorian, the first season of The Mandalorian, and that was a new show that I was addicted to. I'm a big fan of that show. Immediately following that show, after its first season, was the final season of The Clone Wars returning, which is something I personally love more than ponies. And so, yeah, other things took my attention away from ponies and grieving for ponies, and I was excited for these other things. Ponies were still part of my life, obviously, but yeah, I had moved on to other stuff like The Mandalorian. So then what happened next? Oh yeah, the world ended in 2020. I don't know if you guys know this. This might be a secret to some of you. You might be the first time hearing this, but a little virus came into town. Actually, it came into everybody's town, and yeah, some kind of pandemic went on. The year 2020 was like everything, history going on at once. With this, two things could happen. One, you start making content because you're stuck inside, or two, you're stuck inside, I guess I'll stop making content. And well, wouldn't you know it, yeah, a lot of people stopped making content. There are a lot of other reasons for this. I mean, the show that you're making content from has ended, so why would you continue making content if you had no more source material? So, pretty soon, analysis stopped being analyzed. If that makes sense. Basically, pony content became less frequent because people weren't watching ponies anymore. There was still some pony content. There was also around the time where 15.ai came out, and some leaks with some pony swearing came out. Some fun content was made, and then of course 2020 continued to be bad. People again did less and less pony content. I'm not saying that the year was bad for pony content. Let's just say people were looking on to other things to do than ponies. Makes sense. For me, I stopped looking for pony content. What I would used to do is I'd go to Equestria Daily, any new pony video, I would go watch it. I'd go search top 10 lists, and I'd go watch whatever new content was there. Well, slowly, I stopped doing that. I stopped looking for content to watch. But if anything came within my radar, within my suggestion tab on YouTube, I would probably watch it. But that didn't happen because, yeah, a lot of other stuff happened in 2020, include a very big thing called Among Us, The Mandalorian, Marvel, Disney Plus shows, other stuff came out, and yeah. So a lot of people moved on from pony content, a lot of other people stopped making content. I myself, at this time, retired from doing reaction videos. Oh, speaking of which, why don't we check out what my community is like now? So the Brony Reactor community isn't doing so well. And what I mean by that is that it's practically gone. It's practically dead. There's barely anyone in it now. And it kind of makes sense. Like I said before, if there's no pony show to watch or react to, what is there left to react to? And so because of this, most Brony reaction channels just stopped making content. This happened to channels like Potter Brony and Blank Check. And I even said earlier that I stopped doing pony content as well. And then you have the other side of the spectrum, in that where instead of doing pony content, you start doing other content. Most notably, Rarity Dash, who was once the most popular Brony reactor, now mainly does anime and Patreon requests. But it's not completely dead. There's still a couple Brony reactors still struggling through, most notably Night Rainbow and Johnny Fireflame, although their uploads are few and far between. It may be a few months in between reaction uploads, which isn't really great for reactors, really. You want to see them constantly upload things. But during this time period, there have been a couple new reactors who have popped up, but they don't quite live in the Brony reaction community. They kind of reside in just the regular reaction community. And there is a difference. The main difference is this. Brony reactors, they of course react to the show, but they're also reacting to be a part of the community. They react to fan content, they interact with some fans, they interact with other reactors. They're there for the Brony fandom. The normal reactors are there to watch the show for content. They're not so much interested in becoming bronies or to live in the brony realm. They just want to watch the show because they heard it's a good show and that it will get them some nice content. They're not going to react to any brony fan stuff. They're just in it for the main show. And so with that definition set in place, there really hasn't been any new brony reactors popping up. Pony Bro, I guess, is one example of a Brony reactor, but they again have started switching to other content. It's kind of lonely in the Brony reaction community right now. There's barely anyone in it. You can go back and watch old reaction videos, but like, I mean, it's not the same. You're living in the past by doing that. Every few months, I do check to see if there are new My Little Pony reactors, just to see who new comes in. I do hope we get someone who genuinely wants to be part of the fandom and starts reacting. I do have hope. There have been a couple channels with potential popping up recently, so we'll see where that goes. But for the most part, it just looks like they're looking for content and views. And so now we reach the main point of it all. Life after ponies. It's completely normal. In college, I started to explore more of the production side of theater. I learned about the different design aspects, the costuming, the lighting, the stage, the makeup. And so after some soul searching and figuring out what do I like, I kind of landed on audio. And so I started taking audio-based classes, and I absolutely love them. I've learned so much about it. I've learned about audio editing. I've learned how to edit videos differently. I've learned a lot about doing live audio, and I am committed that this is what I want to do in my life. And so at this point in life, I'm a couple weeks away from graduating. I am about to graduate. It's scary, but it's also exciting. I really can't wait to see where things go. So since the show ended, what does life look like for you, and were your observations about the life in the fandom itself?
The life in the fandom itself, well, I'll tell you this, getting involved with the fandom was much more interesting, but then I've connected with older people outside of the fandom. They're not a part of the Brony fandom, like connecting with people that are professional, and I got to, do a lot of stuff at that time. Even during this year and last year, getting involved with older fandom musicians or even artists that, never made a single pony content since like season 1 or 2, and they've become the biggest artists. For example, Tombstone and some of the other people. So I got to be mutuals with them during the pandemic all the way through. It was kind of late coming, but as I digress. And of course, the Brony music has helped me craft my entire drumming process, or if music, basically. It kind of influenced on my entire musical mind, where I listen to EDM, but I also get ideas to send to other groups as well. So the Brony music fandom scene has helped me, give me inspiration or ideas, so that I can better my playing, but also give better observation on music as well.
None of these decisions are really impacted by the show itself, but I will say that the show, again, as mentioned earlier, the show helped me to be more confident, to be more friendly. They're not like one-on-one where I watched an episode and I thought, cool, I guess I'll do that with my life. but doing reaction videos to the show helped make me more comfortable on camera, which helped make me more comfortable and confident with a live audience, whether it be giving a class presentation or doing theater. Theater also helped make me more comfortable on the camera as well, and so they both helped each other in the end. And so with that being said, pony content still influences me, and it still influences some of my work. I will still sometimes sneak a pony reference into my homework. It's not very often, it's really rare when I do it, but sometimes I do.
There hasn't been too much correlation between the show ending and my life choices or change. Like, I don't think it's not been as impactful as that, I guess. I've seen some changes in the fandom and some of the cultural stuff, but like me and my life has not changed a whole lot. I think the only thing, again, is like some of the older generations. I've been looking into the older generations, and I'm not really sure if I would have given them a chance or looked into them if G4 was still going. What probably the most interesting thing for me is seeing the people who were children in 2010 who have grown up, you know, so the target audience, they've grown up and now they're making videos and they have a sort of shared experience and their own opinions and observations about the Brony fandom, you know. And so, and there's all sorts of little debates I've seen here and there on like, what is even a Brony now, you know? And so there's kind of, it's almost like little factions, and because then you have G5 that's shown up, and there's people who love G5, and some people who hate G5, and then there's the G3 fans who I feel like are kind of on the rise a little bit, which is interesting. Like 2014, none of the Bronies like G3, but now I don't know. I think I think it's sort of making a comeback or not a comeback, but a surgence, I guess.
And while I still love ponies, I have started to get rid of some of my pony swag, as it were. These are some of the pony figures that I've collected over the years. These were from Funko's Mystery Box. And right now, I'm at a point where I feel like selling them. So I'm going to reconsider this and think about it. But I'm just going to sell this stuff. Okay, so I put the listing on eBay. And yeah, someone's bought them, and they're packed up in here, ready to go. So I'm gonna mail this to the post office, and that will be the end of them. So what I kept are pretty much the main figures, like the two princesses, a couple of the main six, the CMC, and a nice Trixie. This is the next item I have for sale. This is it's a My Little Pony 3-wing binder from the finale of Season 3. Of course, we got Twilight. But inside is a dog tag collection where you can find over 50 dog tags in here, ranging from like main characters, silhouettes of cutie marks. There's just one page. Here's the backs of them. And they range from like the main characters like this to like the dark series to the silvers, and these special ones. Yeah, and so yeah, I was really into dog tags, and now I'm trying to get rid of them. There's so many dog tags, I don't really wear them like I used to. There's also some trading cards, I guess, but I was never into them. So yeah, this has been one that I've been thinking about selling for a long time because it's just been sitting on my shelf and I think it deserves a better home. And this isn't just limited to pony swag. I've collected a lot of non-pony swag over the years, like Star Wars. I have a bunch of Star Wars action figures. I have a bunch of Lego figures. And so just to clean up and give myself some space so that I don't end up being a hoarder, I've started selling some of my stuff. It's really nice. It's a sign of me growing up and putting things aside that I don't need. Very rarely I get what I want, and when I do, it's actually something really nice. So I just bought a shirt and it just arrived in the mail. Yeah, I'm really excited about this. It's like, yeah, I don't really get pony shirts that often anymore. So Yeah, let's check it out. Here it is. Wow, looks pretty cool. Yeah, I got the cutie marks of all the main 6. I like the simplicity of just the cutie marks. It's me telling the world I'm a brony without telling them that I'm a brony. Very nice. Let's try it on. Alright, here it is. Looks very nice. I like the cutie marks. It's very cool. Yeah. It fits. I can wear it. I'm no longer really obsessed about ponies. I still like ponies, but it's a casual like. I don't constantly go to the store and be like, alright, I'm gonna go look at the pony stuff. If I walk by and I see something that's ponies, I'm like, yep, look at that. That's ponies. Cool. And then I move on. I don't constantly stare at all of my pony stuff and being like, ponies. I look at that and I think, yep, that's ponies. Cool, let me do some homework. I think the saddest part about life after ponies is that I don't interact with any other bronies anymore. This is partially due because the community that I interacted in is like dead, but it's also like there's no bronies where I'm living at. There are people who know about My Little Pony, but they don't really talk about ponies. They just acknowledge that there's pony swag that I have, like, oh look, pony stuff, that's cool. Then they walk away. We don't chat and talk about times of the fandom or talk about the show. We're just like, oh yeah, cool, you got that thing, I recognize that. Anyway, have a nice day. This is probably different for other bronies. I think some other bronies do interact with each other in person, but I've not really had much interaction outside of conventions with other bronies. I'd like to though. And so what I've noticed about myself and the fandom in general is that, well, we kind of move on. Bronies, they're less active. They've moved on to other content. I've moved on to other stuff. I still come back to ponies. Like G5 is going on right now. Where I used to just immediately watch a new episode when it came out, it took me months to watch the new episodes of G5. I don't think they're great, but I watch them. So right now, recently, I've been going back and looking at some old pony stuff. So what has caused this? Well, I started doing a podcast with a friend of mine about Barbie movies, the old classic Barbie movies. And for a couple reasons, one being that it's a series of films made for little girls, and 2, the voice cast for those films are the same for ponies. And so I would hear them and be like, oh, they're from ponies, I know them. And so recently, a few months ago, I rewatched season 9. It had been years since I'd watched an episode of the show. I had only watched that season once. Normally I watch it a couple times, but I only watched that season once. And when I watched it again, I really enjoyed it a lot more. So have you rewatched any episodes since the end of the show, or rewatched this show itself?
Yeah, so I have a girlfriend now, so we've been going back to some older episodes, and we might do some more in the future. And sometimes when I'm like bored, I pull up Netflix and I watch. I usually watch season 1 and 2, but sometimes I scroll through a random episode through like season 8 or season 5.
And when I watched the final episode again, it hit a lot differently. I connected to it a lot more than I did when I first watched it. And this is partially because I understood what the lesson of that episode was. So when I had first watched that episode, I wasn't in the best mindset about the show. I was a bit cynical about the show, and so the lesson that they were trying to tell kind of went over my head. But this last time watching it, I got it, and my goodness, the final season was preparing us for the end of the show. The final episode is about Twilight not wanting to move on. It's about her coronation and her becoming the official princess to rule Equestria. She realizes that this is a big next step, and this means that my life with my friends, this life that I've had for the past few years, is gone. It's changing to something different. She cries in this episode, and she doesn't know how to feel about that. And it hit me. This is a message not just to kids, but to Brony specifically, specifically that this show that we spent the past 10 years watching, loving, just sharing with other people, this is ending. But that's okay. There are other things in life, and that doesn't mean that because you have to move on, you have to throw away your past. You can still look back at the past. That's what it's there for. And it doesn't mean that everything you've done, all these relationships that you've built over the years, go away and that they're for nothing. The last problem for Twilight was saying goodbye to her friends. The solution to that was we should hang out together sometime. And it meant a lot to just really enjoy this season that I didn't really enjoy when it first came out. I've yet to rewatch the entire show. I would like to. I'm waiting for a good opportunity to do it. I would probably want to do it with someone who hasn't seen the show. So we'll see if I rewatch the show in the future. I definitely will.
I've gone back to watch specific episodes. I haven't done a proper rewatch of the entire series. I think probably eventually I will. Typically with me and shows, I'll get really obsessed in a show, and like for example right now, like I like Doctor Who, right? But I don't really watch Doctor Who right now. But I know like in a year or so, or maybe a couple months, I'll just be really into Doctor Who, and I'll really want to, and that happens to like all sorts of shows. So I'm sure I'll eventually rewatch Pony and then rediscover how much I love it and that kind of stuff. But then right now I've been much more into the older generations. So I guess maybe that's kind of, and I feel very similarly about those that I did to G4. So maybe that's kind of why, is I'm just into those. I'm really excited about those right now.
So that was my life after Ponies. Ponies had a good influence on me, and it had a moderately good influence on the fandom. The legacy of the show is great, but then there's the legacy of the fandom. So, what is the legacy of the Brony fandom? Will we be known as a group of creative individuals that created beautiful art, music, animation, one that was very charitable and donated money to certain charities that helped causes? Will they be known as world changers, as those who taught others that it's okay to watch a kid's show? Will we be known as those who love and tolerate everyone? Well, to some, yes. But unfortunately, I think for the majority of the world, our legacy is not great. What are your overall thoughts on the show and the Brony community?
Well, there's a level of respect for there, because you guys are very dedicated. Bronies are very dedicated to the show, and that takes a lot of respect. I really love the show Hilda. That's like one of my favorite shows, just because it's just, for me, it's like a nostalgic kind of feeling. So I can understand that about My Little Pony. It's just, you guys just dive right in. I haven't really seen anything from what I used to see as I would walk in on my brother watching. Is maybe I could really get into it, but I was missing so many key points in the plot, I couldn't keep up.
I think that our legacy is a group of freaks who do very sadistic stuff. And the thing about that legacy is that it's not exactly wrong either. As good as the majority of the fandom was, we did have our dark side. Keep in mind, the fandom originated from 4chan, and 4chan doesn't exactly have the best reputation. Remember when I talked about how when Copa came in, people were so worried about how their content being turned made for kids would affect kids, specifically Brony videos that aren't meant for kids, and how we're gonna scar them for life because of this. Well, it's a bit too late for that. This segment here wasn't originally part of this video, but when I started doing research on this topic, I stumbled upon this entry here. Kids were watching Brony content the entire time. We just didn't know it. There have been videos coming out very recently about kids who grew up watching the show and talked about how Brony content traumatized them. They were watching the adult Brony content that was not made for kids, that had, let's just say, not safe for work and safe for kids stuff going on in them. So we're worried now that these YouTube videos will be made for kids and will be sent to the kids. Well, kids had access to our stuff the entire time. We just didn't even think about it. In hindsight, we should have been worried about this. We should have been thinking about this. But I kind of understand how this could have slipped. We were a bit ignorant. The natural thought process probably went like this. this. At this point, you've watched the show, and to you, it's just another show. You don't think of it as a show for the little girls. You just think of it as another good show. So you're part of this fandom that's mostly adults, and you want to create content to share with these other adults. So you make this little piece of artwork or whatever it is you make for this other adult to see, not thinking about what the show was originally made for. So you post it, and well, yeah, the adults that you intended to make this for, they love it. Oh wait, where did this child come from? Oh no. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Kids were looking for My Little Pony content and stumbled upon Brony content. Bronies were making this content not thinking little kids are watching it, because to them, the people watching the show are adults. Looking back on it, it sounds like a really dumb thing, but you know, ignorance is bliss. Yeah, we traumatized a whole generation, and forever that generation will think of us as depraved. Yeah, no, it's not great to be a Brony right now. That's for sure. Will it get better in the future? I don't know what the future holds for the fandom. The fandom could one day just dwindle out to nothingness and then die. It could continue, barely living through just a couple dedicated members. It could be revitalized by a whole new generation of fans just watching the show. Whichever one of those options, I don't know. I don't know if it will be any of those options or all of them. I have always believed that the fandom would one day fully end. And to some extent, it has. At least my side of the fandom has. And that's just life. One thing ends, and you move on to the next. It doesn't mean that those years and memories that you've had were for nothing and that they were worthless. They meant something to you at the time. They may even still mean something to you now. Now, you're more experienced. What are your thoughts and hopes for the future?
My thoughts and hope for the future, well, at the moment, currently, as of this recording, my hope and my thought is to record more Brony music with people, but also get more gigs with people.
Think of the fandom as an interest that you like. Me, I like a few things. I like Batman and DC. I like Star Wars. I of course like ponies. As a kid, I was obsessed with it. I think most kids were. But as I grew older, it became less and less of my focus. Every once in a while, I'll go back to DC and Batman and really love it. I'll go back to Star Wars and really love it and be obsessed with it. Sometimes it just takes some phases. Phases of you loving it, phases of you doing something else, and eventually one day you'll come back to it.
I mean, I hope the fandom, because it's, you know, it's small right now, but I think and hope it'll come back. If there's a generation of pony that's really, really good, I think, you know, there'll be a new surgence of fans. I kind of see it as like, it's here to stay. You know, it's something like the Star Trek fandom or something like that. I'm sure there's going to be shows that come and go and fans that come and go. I'm still doing lots of pony stuff, and I have some plans for pony stuff. But I am moving into making my own, I guess, pilots and crowdfunding and that kind of stuff, and maybe getting into the film industry that way is kind of my general plan. But lots of pony stuff for the channel though too. So we'll see. Maybe shed some light on G1. Actually, that's my kind of obsession right now. So we'll see how that goes.
Maybe one day the fandom will get a sense of nostalgia and will all come back. We have seen the fandom come back for things. When it was announced that the final BronyCon would be the last one, the fandom came back and had a big celebration. When the G5 film came back, a lot of fans came back to watch this new generation. When r/place came back, a lot of fans came back and did some pony stuff in that. Will the fandom completely die? Maybe when we're all old and way past our prime. Yeah, sure. Technically it will. But perhaps a future generation can come in and reinvent what it means to be a fan. I still hope in the future that I will love the show as much as I did. So this book just came in the mail. I found out about this book somehow, and so I bought it on eBay, and here it is. I'm pretty sure it's a book about becoming a Brony, but yeah, no, I've never heard of this book before, so
It's kind of thick. Should be interesting.
It's actually not that bad.
Do you think that in the future you would ever give the show a chance?
Maybe one day. This might be something I could like watch with my nephews or nieces or whatever, you know, the next generation would be in my family. But if they could get into it, or if I had a potential spouse that enjoyed it, I might go ahead and watch it.
It's hard to think of a way to just close off this little video thought topic experiment. But I decided to just end it off with this. This is a book that has been years in the making. In the early days of the fandom, a group of psychologists noticed the fans and decided to research us. They spent years sending out surveys to everyone, and I, along with thousands of other bronies, participated in those surveys. In 2019, they finally released this book with all of our answers collected in here. And they have a little chapter talking about the end of the show. And I want to read a segment from this chapter. We don't deny that the conclusion of the show will mark the end of an era for the Brony community, but it's hard to imagine that after nearly a decade, the show itself will completely vanish. It will always be available somewhere online, and on the hard drives of diligent Bronies who stored every episode. More importantly, however, the communities which have spent years developing will continue on in at least some capacity, at least if other fandoms are any indication. This doesn't mean things won't be changed, however. Some members of the fandom will leave, to be sure. The norms and routines fans have become accustomed to will certainly shift, as will the focus of the fandom. With the end of official Friendship is Magic content, the focus of the fandom may shift to emphasize fan-made work more than the original show over time. But it's hard to know for sure. The future is sometimes scary for all its uncertainty. If there's anything that makes the Brony fandom distinct from other fandoms, it's the overall positivity of it all. From Pinkie Pie encouraging us to all smile, to Twilight's lessons on friendship, from Fluttershy's reminders that we should be kind, to Rarity's assertion that we shouldn't be afraid to shine. Rainbow Dash taught us to be awesome along the way, and Applejack, well, she taught us that apples were pretty good. This sort of positivity and optimism is what's going to keep the Brony fandom going for years to come. Was this excerpt correct? Time will tell, and people will have different opinions. I hope one day that I'll be able to share the show with some friends and just introduce them to the fandom, the good parts at least. I don't think I'll ever not like ponies. I think I always enjoy them, even if just casually. I just bought this book, so I think I still like the show. I hope that the future is good. I don't know if it will, but I have hope. And I hope that you do too. So thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you all next time. That's it. That's the end. Video's over. Goodbye.